Hi, everyone. So happy you could join us today. I'm here with Meg Flanagan, who is a business owner and advocate and full-time mom, all the things. And we've been having a great time chatting. So I'm really excited that we finally pressed record so you can hear the rest of the conversation. Hi, Meg.
Hi, Sue. It's so nice to meet you.
I know this is also, I feel like we've known each other forever. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation over some nice Japanese nosh. We were talking that we've both been to Okinawa, so that was really fun.
It's
So
a it's a good old girls Okinawa club.
right? And there's a lot of people out there. So if you've been to Okinawa yourselves, give us a thumbs up because we'd love to know. I have a theory that a lot of people have been to Okinawa, but maybe more Okinawa than Ramstein. I think a lot of people have been overseas, but it seems like a lot more people have been to the Pacific than to Europe. So give us a
I
thumbs up if you've
agree.
been to the Pacific. Don't you think?
I think so too. I think Okinawa, especially because you have Marine Corps, you have Navy, Army, Air Force. You have kind of all of the you have all like I don't know what Space Force is doing, but um, you kind of have every service branch there, and it's
And it's an
it's
amazing.
delightful.
Yeah. So we have good memories and we will talk about that offline. But, I can't wait to get into this conversation because I was reading your interview. I was reading your highlights, as I hope everybody has, because, these conversations start where that leaves off. And I was reading it and it just seemed to me that looking back, it looks like you built your businesses by taking very deliberate moves that would lead you to the next step in the process. However, in reading the next question after, that first one, you mentioned that you ended up really far away from where you thought you would be. So how challenging was it for you to press ahead when you couldn't necessarily see the entire path ahead of you?
It was actually really, really scary. I went to college knowing I was going to be a teacher. I envisioned a 30-year career in the Massachusetts public education system. I envisioned retiring to my beautiful Massachusetts beach town. And then I met my husband and he joined the Marine Corps. Um, and here we are today. So it was scary, but I think that after the first few years of acclimating to military life, I kind of realized that life is about trusting a lot of times blindly. The next deployment, the next set of orders, the next promotion board, who your neighbor is going to be, who your emergency contact is going to be. And so you just kind of prepare the best that you can and then just hope that it turns out exactly as it should. I've been incredibly lucky that things have gone really well in my business. Um, it's just really been determining the next right step in that particular moment, doing as much research as possible, and then just taking the step. As I was doing this, as I have for my entire life, I think about my grandma, who was my best friend growing up. And so she had a sign in her kitchen that said, pray toward heaven, but row toward shore. And that's kind of how I've always thought about it. Like, I'm always hoping that divine intervention, the universe, however you like to think about it, is somehow looking out for me and figuring it out alongside of me. But that's not going to stop me from doing the best preparation work I can. I always believe that, you get where you get by helping yourself.
No, that's exactly right. And I think a lot of people out there are going to be like, well, that's great. It just sounds like her career trajectory was really smooth. Everything worked out for you. And you're laughing. So I know that can't be the case. So, what is the reality? Has it always worked out for you?
No. And so I think that this is true for a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, which is what I am, where it looks a certain way online and the reality of it is very different. So I have had a lot of stops and starts. I had a tutoring business during our first duty station, and I shut it down when we moved back to Virginia. I taught in the classroom. Then we moved for a year, and I tried my hand at freelance writing. Um, and then we moved again, and I went back into the classroom, and then we had a baby, and then I decided to stay home full time with my kiddos, still taking advantage of that Okinawan cheap, cheap childcare, which, if you're not aware of it, please do some research. It's incredible. With my older kiddo in a local preschool, my baby at home with me, trying to freelance, while also trying to figure out if starting my own business was a good idea. I have done so many things, even in this business that is largely successful by my own standards and no one else's, um, that haven't worked out. I wrote a book, and it's a really cool book. It's about how to talk to your kid's teacher, and it gives you like a literal script of what to say in almost any situation you could possibly imagine at school. No one seems to buy it. I've tried marketing it. I'm probably not great at marketing, and that's fine. I'm owning that. I've rolled out courses, free courses, paid courses. No one's enrolled in them, and that's fine. I've discovered my niche is one-on-one advocating and consulting. And that's what I love. That's what I do. And that's okay. If not everything works out, just find it's just finding what you like to do. And if it takes, 17,000 missteps, then that's just kind of what happens.
No, I love it. And I think you're speaking to my heart because one of my favorite philosophers is Emerson, and what he said is, it always seems like you're swimming upstream, except when you figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing, then it just seems like everybody's parting the way for you. And um I'm paraphrasing it. He says it much more elegantly, but it's like when you figure out what you're supposed to be doing, everything just moves out of your way and you just feel like it's just so easy because you're
Yeah.
working your exceptionalness, right? You're working your area of expertise and you're doing what you're meant to do. So love that. And I also love your last piece of advice from your profile. And I'm actually going to read the quote because I actually wrote down the entire quote. Remember that everything has a season. Sometimes you're going to be able to go full head, steam ahead with your professional pursuits. Other times you may need to hit pause or scale back to achieve better balance. It's okay to do what you need to do in order to maintain peace and sanity. I think this is so difficult for military spouses because for a lot of spouses, doing that can feel like they're choosing to let their careers take a back seat to the service member's career. So I mean, you're so well balanced. How, like teach us, right? I feel like you're Yoda, teach us. How can they make peace with the possibility that they may have to sometimes hit pause or scale back? And it's not a ding on them at all.
Yeah. So this is honestly something that I have struggled with greatly since I was a new baby military spouse way back in 2008. So it's taken me like 16 years to get to here of this place of peace and Yoda-ness. Um, I was frustrated for the first 12 years of military spousehood, um, because I would look at the peers that I went to college with, and they're 12 years in, they're 6 years into a professional education career, they've hit tenure, they're on, they're getting a second master's degree, they're getting a doctoral degree, they're moving into the admin positions at a K-12 school. They are making the career progress that I anticipated I would be making had my freshman, sophomore year of college plans come to fruition, right? Watching them do that and knowing that I'm about to move in 6 months and that I'm going to lose effectively all of the seniority that I've built up at my current school district, that I'm going to have to, with a business, I'm going to have to branch out and remarket myself, re-niche myself in a new location to new people. That was incredibly and still somewhat is incredibly painful. What really changed it for me was actually in 2015 to 2016. My husband was at a 1 year school in San Diego, and it frankly did not make sense for me to get a California teaching license, hunt for a job, get the jobs, attempt to secure exorbitantly expensive childcare for a 1 academic year position in a state that I know we're not going to retire to, that we're likely not going to cycle back to. It didn't make sense. So I took the year and I explored. I joined a running club. I love to run. It's what my stress release. It's cheaper than therapy. That's what I do. And I joined Stroller Warriors. I met some of the dearest friends in the world. I went to the San Diego Zoo every night with my toddler. We ate all of the kettle corn because it's amazing. Um, we explored San Diego. We would go on daily, like 3 hour walks around our neighborhood and just go to different places. And then while she was napping, I would write, and I would just send out cover letters and pitches because I needed to do something creative with my brain other than just, and I don't want to, this is going to sound terrible. I am not a great stay-at-home parent. I'm a teacher. I love teaching. I love learning, but I like to do it in a school with like very careful boundaries or in like a very carefully structured manner. Staying home with a year and a half, 1.5 year old to 2 year old it was not, I loved it. I loved every second of it. Don't get me wrong. It was not intellectually challenging enough for me. Um, and so I needed to do something. And that's how I got into freelance writing. That's how I started my blog, which later became my consulting business. Um, it's it's really just to cycle it back. It's about figuring out what makes sense for you in that moment. For me in 2015, it made sense for me to stay home. It did not make sense for me to spend several hundred dollars on licensure and then thousands of dollars on daycare to make what would be a drop in the bucket financially for us, because the daycare would offset all of the money I was earning as a teacher. We would probably be in debt for the childcare compared to what I was going to make. And so my husband actually encouraged me, just take a pause, figure out what you want to do next. Does it make sense for you to go back to the classroom? And in what circumstances? Does it make sense for you to do something else? Does it make sense for you to just be a stay-at-home mom? And that's totally fine. And I think that a lot of military spouses, especially career-driven professionals, find it really hard to stop and just be. And like I said, it's taken me 16 years to get to this, to being okay with this. And a lot of it is just saying, I'm taking a pause and this works right now for us. So right now I have a part-time teaching job and I run my business part-time. My business could be more profitable. I could do it full-time. It's emotionally draining. I love it. I love everything about it. Negotiating special education can be emotionally draining. It is. It's emotionally draining for parents, for teachers, for advocates. It's emotionally draining for everyone. It's better for me to be part-time here and part-time there. It works for us. I have Mondays and Fridays that are flexible. If a kid is sick on those days or needs a doctor's appointment, I can be the point parent. But it just is what it is. Does that make sense?
It does. And I really
It's
appreciate you.
rambly.
No, it's okay. Because I really appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable, because I know a lot of us recognize our stories and your story, because I'm glad you told me that you haven't always been thrilled about it, and that that it wasn't always like, I wasn't always so positive, or I wasn't always so healthy about it. Because I went through a phase where, we had decided that when our son was born, that someone was going to stay home, was obviously going to be me. But I wasn't making full sentences because I was at home with him by myself for like weeks. And then I would go out, or I'd have conversations, and I think that I was answering them in like perfect syntax. And they're like, what? You know that all you said at the end of that sentence was la, 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 la. And I'm like, what? And she's like, you don't even recognize that you're not even using words? And I'm like, well, I talk to a toddler all day long. Why would I use full words? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I was meant to be this full-time mom. And you feel so horrible for even saying that out loud. But then you meet people like you, Meg, or like, I wish I'd known you. We're gonna be best friends now anyway, but I wish I'd known you back, because then I would have had someone to validate, like, no, you're not insane. I also don't speak in full sentences, and it's okay not to feel like super mom, and that, you want a career, you want something for yourself. So thank you for saying that. But let's get back and talk about something happy. I know that your
Yeah.
spouse is ready to retire in the next 5, 7, 8 years. Um, so I want to know, what does your vision for your business look like post-military life? Because everything looks so deliberate. What's the next step? Does it look different? Is it scaling? What's going on?
I don't know. I have thought about scaling I've done this business for 7 years and I've scaled it as much as I can without going full time. I also, I operate my business in a way that is different from many others. I don't do a lot of advertising. A lot of my referrals are word of mouth. I don't do a lot of social media. Basically, if you find me, it's because you need me. Or I'm doing an interview like this, and you're like, oh, hey, Meg sounds great. I need her to help with my special ed plan.
Yeah.
It's emotionally draining for me, so let me give her some of that. So I don't know what it's going to look like. So he's retiring in the next 3 to 7 years. Um, and a lot of what I do next will depend on what happens with his career next, post Marine Corps. I mean, he's been a Marine since he was 18 years old.
And
Yes.
he'll
So
still be a Marine after he retires
he will
too.
still be a Marine after he retires. Having met him in between Marine Corps stints in college when he was still getting up at, 0 dark 30 to go PT, I'm like, it's Saturday, friend. Like, bro,
You're like, I like to run, but
take a
I'm
beat.
sleeping.
I love you so much, but if you could like postpone this until 9:30, that would be ideal. It
Awesome.
was rough last night. So I don't know. Right now, me doing what I'm doing professionally works for our family. Like I said, I can be flexible. I'm the default parent. Um, I am not the breadwinner. I am earning some bread, but it is not perhaps a full loaf compared to what he is bringing in financially. And so it really, I don't know. I'm going to think
No,
about
this
it. I'm going to ruminate on this.
will come back and tell us. No, I mean, I
I
love
will.
this conversation, and this is fantastic because I think it's so refreshing to talk to somebody who's like perfectly at peace with their space, like where they live or where they reside right now. Because it's non-judgmental, you're not saying that this is the right thing for anybody else but you. And I love that. And I think me walking away from this, where I hope that other people listening to this, I hope that's what they take away from this is what works for you may not work for everybody else, and that is perfectly fine. Like,
Yes.
I love that you have the confidence to know this is what works for me, my family, my husband's career, our life together. And I think that is something that is really missing from a lot of conversations is that it doesn't matter what works for everybody else, it's what works for you and your family.
Yeah. I think that giving each other a little bit of grace. I see a lot on like the career military spouse boards of people who are like, I have a really great job. I want a geo batch, and people on both sides are naysaying their decision. Well, great. That's not your marriage. That's not your family. If geo batching for that family works so that that spouse can have that amazing career trajectory, great. Cheer them on. But it didn't work for mine. It frankly wouldn't have made sense for me to remain behind to keep teaching. Um, and I think that the other thing we see a lot in the military community is not necessarily the need to be cookie cutter. And you actually see it a lot with entrepreneurs too. Um, Especially when I was starting out, years ago, there was this trajectory that was being taught, rightly or wrongly, of, first you make your social media, then you make your website, then you make a product at a low price point, and then you scale it from there, and then you publish a book. And I followed that. I followed that to a T, but it didn't. And then the dream is, right, then you get to six figures. I'm not at six figures. I'll be very honest with you. I am not at six figures in my business. And I'm okay with that. It's okay. Success for me is knowing that there are 50 families this academic year that have had a slightly easier journey navigating and negotiating their children's IEPs and 504 plans located around the world because they hired me. That's it. That's success for me. I could make $20,000 doing that. I can make $600,000 doing that. I can make $6 million doing that. But knowing that it's 50 families that have a better experience because I started a business purely designed to help people, that's satisfying. That's rewarding. And that's career growth for me. From going from I want to do this for 30 years to I just want to do this to help people. I think that's a good evolution.
And I love that. And I'm not going to say anything else because that's the perfect note to end on. So, I mean, I know that this probably put a lot of thoughts on you guys. So if you have any questions for Meg, please leave them in the comments and we will get them to her. But I know we're going to continue this conversation because we live near each other. But for anybody else who has questions, comments, yes, please leave them in the comments. And please consider doing one of these highlights yourself because it's a lot of fun. We just sit here and we just chat. And it serves to inspire a lot of military spouses out there who are just trying to find their way around. And it's great if people who already have some of the answers, can share their experiences with them. So please consider applying for your own. Other than that, we want to thank USAA for making these conversations possible. Thank you so much, Meg, for joining us this week. And we will see you guys here next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.